Let's open our Bibles, please, this afternoon to Genesis chapter 11. We'll start there. Later in the message, we'll be turning to Revelation 13. Today, I'm bringing part 2 of the message I started 2 weeks ago about how Nimrod's rebellion in Genesis 10 to 11 in building the Tower of Babel and forming the first unified kingdom or empire over all men prefigures the coming global government of the Antichrist. First, for a quick review and a few more observations from the text here in Genesis 11. Beginning in verse 1, we'll read through verse 4. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass as they journeyed from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar. And they dwelt there, and they said to one another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach into heaven. And let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. From the last part of verse 4 here, let us make a name, let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. We can presume, then, that Noah's descendants had at that time of this account not yet scattered abroad into other lands. And so where we read in verse 2, that as they journeyed from the east, and they found a plain in the land of Shinar, the they in that verse refers to the inhabitants of the whole earth. In verse 1, that were all of one language. In other words, Noah's sons and their families, apparently finding the region of Ararat undesirable, probably becoming rather cold, looking for better land, they stayed together and apparently migrated southeastward at first, down through the Euphrates Valley and into present-day Iran, once known as Persia. And then they turned back westward to enter the low, flat land of Shinar in present-day Iraq from the east, where they decided to build a city and a tower. Verse 3, and they said to one another, Go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. They had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, Go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. As we saw last time, this effort was led by a man described in chapter 10 named Nimrod, whose very name speaks of rebellion, and who we deduce from the text was a cunning politician, a leader and a motivator of men, who at this particular location achieved the position of ruling as king over that whole assembly, forming the first kingdom we see in the Bible. At that early date, in fact, being the first universal government or empire over all the families of men. As we read in chapter 10 and verse 10, that the beginning of Nimrod's kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. So there were 4 cities in that land that Nimrod ruled over, presumably at the same time, with his capital or his seat of government apparently located where he built this Tower of Babel, at the site later then to become the city of Babylon. The tower itself being an affront to God himself and an effort to achieve godlike status, just as Lucifer said in Isaiah 14:4, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I'll be like the Most High. Nimrod and his followers wanted to be like the Most High also, or to come as near to him as they could, saying, Lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. That statement indicates that they knew it was God's intention for them to be fruitful and multiply, spread out and fill the earth. But Nimrod, no doubt inspired and aided by Satan and his minions, said, no, let's not do that. Let's all come together instead and make a name for ourselves right here. Stay together. So in verse 6, the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them, which they have imagined to do. In other words, in that day, meaning they will proceed from one evil to another with no restraint whatsoever, as we see the fruit of that warning today. So therefore we read in verse 8 to 9 that the Lord confused their languages to compel them to scatter abroad into separate nations. Verse 8, so the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. Babel meaning confusion. So Nimrod was the world's first king, its first ruler, to unite all mankind of that day under his dominion, which has been attempted many times since, we know, but never achieved. And as such, Nimrod clearly prefigured or serves as a type of the coming Antichrist, who the Bible says in Revelation 13:7 will be given power or authority over all kindreds and tongues and nations, the Bible says, while he makes war with the saints, God's people, to overcome them. That verse also says. In preparation for which, Lucifer, Satan, the devil, has for centuries had his devotees who gathered in their secret societies, their Masonic lodges, and their covens, coordinated, I still believe, based on the text of Revelation 17, I'll be getting into more today, and many other clear historical and current evidences. That effort being coordinated through the Vatican in Rome in order to plot and scheme to bring that global government to pass, who have even adopted the image, these globalists have even adopted the image of the Tower of Babel to symbolize their effort to build a new world order, and who Satan also has enriched with the wealth of this world to either conquer or to stealthily infiltrate and take control over the governments of this world, to ultimately destroy all resistance to his new world order. And they keep inching closer and closer to that goal using a multi-pronged strategy that we began to talk about last time, for which goal, of course, the League of Nations was formed after World War I, followed then by the United Nations, the UN, in 1945, World War II, the World Health Organization, WHO, in 1948, and the World Economic Forum in 1982, which has now come, World Economic Forum, has now come to dominate both the UN and the World Health Organization, all done under the guise and the pretentious pretext of promoting goodwill and peace and good health for all the people of the world. But that, of course, as we saw clearly demonstrated in the World Health Organization's role in overseeing the global con job of the biowarfare operation of 2020, has instead brought either death or great physical harm to tens of millions of people globally, literally. Stage one of which was the release of the bioengineered pathogen. Thank you for tuning into this message, but unfortunately, due to YouTube's restrictive policies against truth, free speech, and public awareness, we can only post an excerpt of this message to YouTube. To hear the message in full, you can do so on our Rumble platform, linked in the description of this video. Also, as a result of new actions being taken this year by the UN's World Health Organization, all member nations, and definitely by Google and YouTube, censorship of truth will soon be ramped up to new extremes. And so we'd encourage you to subscribe to our Rumble channel and follow us there. We also ask that if you have been blessed by this online ministry, please consider sponsoring us with your much needed and greatly appreciated financial support through the contacts page on our website at independencebaptist.com. Thank you for listening.